And so whenever I go to Wesley, park in the employee parking, it's always kind of the same routine. They've got an employee parking thing that you guys probably, it's out of the way, and we park there. So I park on the fourth level because it's just easy to get a spot, and then I ride the elevators down. Then there's this walkway that you walk. It's not a covered thing, so like today would be cold, that kind of thing. And I always remember that while the garage was warm whenever I got out in the car from the house, that is why I don't have my jacket. And when I'm in the parking garage at work, it's like, oh man, I forgot my jacket again. So I'm walking down that area, and there's always this sign right here. And there's always this creepy guy standing by it. I don't know what that's about. But flash a bigger picture of that sign. It says this: the finest healthcare workers in the world enter through these doors. The finest healthcare workers in the world enter through these doors. I see that every time I go in. It's an employee entrance. You got to have a badge to get back there by the employee parking. And I know that some HR person did that. I know that they were in some kind of meeting, and you do too, all the business people in here. You know that they were like, hey, how do we spark productivity and make everybody feel better about what they're doing? And hey, we could do a sign. You can just hear somebody saying, thanks, Jeff. We could do a sign, and a sign could be, the finest. And I know that all of that is happening. But it still works on me. And, you stand a little taller. And, I know that there's fantastic healthcare workers in this world, even in this town. You could say it about St. Francis. You could say it about lots of places. Mayo Clinic. There are wonderful healthcare workers all over the world. I know that. But whenever it says the finest healthcare workers in the world enter through these doors, some of the finest of them, it just makes you feel good. It makes you feel significant, like you're participating in something that's important, a life-saving effort. And I hope that it will not make you feel uncomfortable. But it's absolutely sincere and completely not ironic to me. There's no sarcasm in it. It's absolutely the way I think about you, and I've been thinking about it for several, days as I've been thinking about today. Some of the finest Christians in the world have entered through the doors of this church. Some of the very finest people that the Lord has in His army, that Jesus has in His flock, have been you. There are people that are sitting right here today. And I wrote down a couple of things because I didn't want to just trust it to memory, but I was just thinking about this, and I was thinking, you are the kind of Christians that have loved each other very deeply. You are the kind of people, if you were lucky or unlucky enough to serve on our leadership teams, hey, we didn't hate each other there, did we? We might not have known all what to do, but we loved each other. We didn't say, I can't stand that group or I can't stand this group. We loved each other, and when we left, because the Lord was leading us and our family, we didn't leave mad, did we? Where can you say that of? We run into friends everywhere in the city that used to be part of this. And some of them were able to come back today. And there's love. There's regard. There's kindness. It's not like going down a different aisle at Dillon's or something like that. We care about each other. You sacrifice your time and your talent and your blood. How many people got bloody on the trailer or some sort of things like that? Tim goes, me, and he has only 3 fingers. Sweat and tears. You gave your heart to the children and to the teens because the Lord asked you to. I still remember one of us that came up one time after a message and says, "This is the scariest thing ever in my life, but I want to catch the wave that the Lord's doing." And so He's calling me to work with the teens, just like it wasn't even about teens or something. And they were just like, "I got to do this." And there's stories like that everywhere where people responded to the Lord and did scary things. You did things that weren't comfortable, but you did them because the Lord asked. And you used your mind for the Lord. Doesn't it say, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind? Is there anything more frustrating or creative or whatever than a church plant and trying to figure out all the puzzles and all the financial parts and you don't have enough space, but you've got to do this with the children, and it's just constantly, isn't it? Constantly loving the Lord with your mind. And you did that. And if nobody was there to do it, you did it. Right? If it wasn't a thing, you didn't ride the pine. You weren't bench warmers. Right? You said, well, it looks like that if my family needs this, or we need that, or the church needs that, well then I guess, Lord, here I am. I'm not a X, Y, or Z, but near as, if you'll help me, then I'll do this thing. And you did those things. And it just goes on and on and on. And I wish, I don't need to defend the Lord to say what His plans are. This surprises me. That might surprise you. I don't know what the Lord is doing. He can speak for Himself very aptly. But it would have been cool to have a church where there was a sign that whenever you came in, it said, the finest Christians in the world enter through these doors. And I hope that on the mansion that the Lord's making for you someday, that He's carving that into the top of your door, right alongside the OU that'll be on your door. And it'll say, the finest people. And so the Lord's going to be the one who does these things. I think it would have been cool if I would have been able to have a sign, that's what I would have said. And so, since that's the case, and since that's what I truly believe about you, then there's just one last thought that I want to leave with you. I've been mulling around something that the head of planting for our denomination told me a long time ago. Some of you guys know that he said this, and some of you might not. And he said, Mark, you will never be able to go back from this. And what he was saying was, in his way of thinking, that I would never be able to return to the kind of ministry, to the kind of things that I had done before. He said, this will ruin you for that. You will never recover from this, ever. And so I've been thinking about that because it was tongue-in-cheek. He was serious. It was almost feeling a little bit threatening, like, if you walk through this door, there's no coming back from it. And as I've been processing on it, I've been thinking that maybe the Lord is saying something through it, but I would like to change it from a threat to an invitation. You can't ever go back, and you don't ever want to go back from what has happened to you here. There's no way to go back from it. There was a time where maybe you were complacent. And there was a time maybe when you didn't trust the Lord as much as maybe later you did. Maybe this process, with all the unknowns and all the creative quandaries, maybe there was a point where you began to think that the Lord could do anything. Maybe there was a point where you started to dream a little bit more than you had in the past. Maybe there was a time where you had a little bit more of a radical faith. Maybe there was a time where you said, hey, if it's going to be, well, I'm not going to take pot shots at what's not happening. I'm going to try and do something about it. And lo and behold, you found out that the Lord blessed you and led you and created, and you felt vibrant and you became something. What I'd like to say is you can't go back from that. Please don't go back from that. There's no going back. Take whatever it is. I don't know why the Lord doesn't just make this into something that we all could tell that He kept us around way past the averages, and I don't know why the Lord does what He does. But here's one thing that's cool about it, if I were guessing. If He were to take a bunch of salty Christians like you guys, some of the finest Christians in the world, and put them in a salt shaker, and then spread them out all over the city, what would happen then? If you took all of that radical obedience, and if something's going to happen, maybe the Lord can use me to do it. Maybe I can be active. Maybe I can trust the Lord. Maybe I can still dream. Maybe it wasn't about, oh, I can't trust the Lord because what if He does it differently? What if He wants you to take the trust and the radicalness and the excitement and the joy that you had and all of that stuff, and then go out all over the city, and then what could the Lord do? In the early days of the church, I'm glad that it's not this reason that we're not moving forward, but in the early days of the church, through persecution, they didn't want to break up either. But you read about it, and the early days, when they were scattered, that's when explosive things happened. So He is the Lord. He does what He wants to do. I wish He would have done maybe something different. But I promise you this, that whatever He does will be the very best thing for all of us. And we cannot go back. I can't go back. So I find out that what the head of planting was saying, I probably actually will go back to traditional church. But I won't be going back like I was. You cannot go back, nor would you ever want to. So, here's what I'm thinking. If, in this moment, this is just between you and the Lord, but if you say to yourself, hey, I'm a little bit mad at the Lord for what He's done, or hey, it's been a while since I've even been here, but whenever I see the pictures, I get in touch with some feelings and some thoughts about the Lord and some obedience that, man, it's been a day or two. This could be a moment, I think it would be very honoring to the Lord of the Salt Shaker, if you said in your heart, no big production, but if you just said, Lord, I've gone back just a little bit further than I want to, and I want to move forward instead. This thing that you've let me be part of, and you've let me participate in, would you help bring it on to fruition? Would you help it be wherever I go? You know how exciting it would be for a church family to receive somebody like you? Somebody like you who wants to serve and wants to pray. And do you know how wonderful that would be? Do you know how exciting that would be? Would you just say in your heart, and here's one thing that would make me real happy. Could you do this just for me one last time? If you were willing, and I'm talking to myself because I've got my own thoughts, of things I wish the Lord would have done. And so I'm not just preaching at you. I'm just thinking about, who do I want to be? Can I go back? Would I want to go back? Or do I mostly want to go forward? Do I want to go forward with all that the Lord's done? So I'm thinking about it in my own life. And so here's something kind of fun. We won't make a big altar thing out of it. But if you were willing in your heart before the Lord to be that kind of person that moves forward, could you just do this one thing for me? Just one last time. Around here, we had a thing that we liked to do when we were really excited about something or we said something was fun. We would say boom baby, wouldn't we? We would say boom baby. I wonder if there would be, just for old time's sake, instead of a big giant prayer, but just an attitude of the heart to the Lord. Hey, this is me. I want to move forward. If on the count of 3 you could just say one last time, I'm just going to remember it. Remember you guys the way you were. Boom baby. 1, 2, 3. Boom baby. Okay. All right. Well, I want to, on a more serious note, give you a final blessing. And then Jim Bond, who is our district superintendent for the Kansas district, and changed his schedule all kind of crazy. He's got to be all over the state, and he changed his schedule to be here, which we all really appreciate. And he's going to pray a closing prayer. But I thought that I could give you a final blessing, and it is what the Lord told the ministers to bless the people with. You shall bless the people with this blessing. So I invite you to stand, and I want to... The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make His face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn His face towards you and give you peace. Jim, you want to pray for it?